nuggets about private appraisal work. And that's really the goal. I want you to walk away with some ideas for how to approach business, maybe some ideas for 2024 as you're planning for this year ahead. And the alternate title was How to Stay an Appraiser Instead of Doing OnlyFans. Okay, Howard, do you know what I'm talking about? You just mentioned that. And so joking aside, what I want us to do, I want us to look at private work and have a realistic perspective for what is it that helps private work be successful. Okay, I want to share what's worked for me. Okay, I know a lot of people have had a really tough year of business this year in real estate, whether it's agents, loan officers, appraisers. And honestly, I've had a really good year. Okay, and I don't say that to gloat. I've never put that online anywhere. I want to say, for the sake of this conversation, to build credibility, that like what I'm sharing has worked really well for me. And I want you to take some of that if it's a benefit for you. And so just food for thought there. But goal, not McDonald's nuggets, but walk away with just a few things. I want to give you some actionable steps to take throughout the course of this conversation. So the fine print, appraisers only. If you're not an appraiser here, since this link was public, I'd like to ask you to go ahead and let yourself out of the room. Positive vibes only. This is a supportive zone. And this is being recorded. Joe Lynch is my pit boss. He's the moderator. And Joe, I really appreciate you doing this. And so he's going to open up a can of whoop ass on anyone who gets out of line. So just be ready. But this is just a Q&A. It's not how to run a business efficiently. It's not how to fill out, do private appraisals. There's some awesome classes for that. Actually, I want to give a plug to Joshua Wallet. I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Okay,
Josh Wallet.
Josh Wallet.
And I'll share the link to his company.
Yeah, he has a great class for how to actually do private appraisals and tips like that. It's through OREP. If you have OREP insurance, it's actually free for members, okay? This is like a 7-hour class, but that's not what this is. I am honestly not the poster child for efficiency. I am definitely the poster child for how to market yourself, how to talk about the market. Like, I do some things really well, and I do some things really not well, okay? Take what works, leave what won't work, okay? There isn't one way to do this, which I really want to emphasize. I want you to use your own unique gifts and abilities, your own personality. You be you, don't be me, don't be anyone else. And please ask questions. I'll pay attention to the chat and make sure that that's up there. And so I'll be monitoring that. And then afterwards, I'd like to just have specific time. If anyone wants to stick around for, an hour or whatever, I'm totally cool to set out a couple hours right now. If you have questions later, just send me an email. And I'm not selling anything. I just want to let you know, I don't have a course. Okay. Sometimes people want to consult with me, and that's fine. But I just want to say, like, this is what I'm going to tell you in our consulting. Okay. And thanks, Mark. Josh is doing a class with Appraiser e-learning on private work. Yeah, Josh, that's a really good class to take. Okay, so my story, I want to jump into my story and then talk about private work. I am an appraiser and a housing analyst. I've been at this for 20 years. And I wanted to draw a distinction here because years ago, the Sacramento Bee started quoting me, and one of the reporters started calling me a housing analyst. And I was like, oh, can I say that about myself? But it was kind of cool for me. There was this thing where over time, my email signature says appraiser and housing analyst. I've embraced this role to go, that's exactly who I am. I'm putting out data. I'm talking about the market. Okay. In addition to appraising, I'm being hired constantly to talk about the market. I spoke 44 times this year for hire and gave presentations. But that is really like, I'm an appraiser first, and everything else flows from that. And so when I'm talking about objectivity in the housing market, that comes from my training as an appraiser, 100%. Okay. And so, but my blog can almost drive. It's 15 years old. It's going to get its permit this year. It'll turn 15 in February. Local people will probably have a big celebration. I'd like to host something, still looking for a place. I don't drink beer anymore, so maybe not a brewery, but who knows? Maybe I'll buy people beer. But my story is really simple. About 15 years ago, I made the best decision I could possibly make in business by joining a local realtor association and I started to build relationships with people. I honestly don't remember what it was that caused me to join, but around that time, we started to talk about the Home Valuation Code of Conduct. And what I realized was that I need to try to find ways to go after business if brokers and lenders, loan officers, if they can't hire me directly. And so that's why I started my blog. But along with my blog, it's not just having success online. It's this: I started to build relationships with people. I joined a committee. And one of the best things I ever did, join a committee, because then it forced me to have to go to a meeting, right? And some of my best friends in real estate came from the Young Professionals Council, and I've since aged out of that. I have no like desire to be a part of that committee anymore. Um, and then for 10 plus years, I made it a point to say I want to try to get into an office every week if I can. I'm donating my time, and I'm talking about the market or FHA or whatever. And I've definitely put in a lot of work to say I'm going to try to show up no matter how busy I am, no matter how crazy the market is. I know I need to connect with people. Okay, that's one of the hallmarks of private work, which we'll get into. I just want to let you know that I'm deeply flawed. I'm out there in the public in many ways. I'm just a normal dude with a lot of issues in my life. But what I've learned is that I can use my gifts and abilities in the appraisal space. Okay, I love to teach. I love to chat. I love to help people. That shows up in my world. But for you, I would turn the table and say, what are you passionate about? How can you bring that into your world? And what are your giftings, whether it's in front of a room or you're the person behind the computer? Like, you get to use that. Okay. So when we think about private work, I think here's a pretty comprehensive list. This came from OREP magazine, and there's a link there. But there's a lot of opportunities out there. Okay, and I think tax appeals and consulting, or divorce appraisals, estate appraisals, pre-listing, home measuring, floor plan services, relocation, bail bonds. And I look through this list, and there's stuff I really like to do, and there's stuff like I don't want to do a bail bond appraisal because I'm not fast enough. Okay, when someone says I need it tomorrow, I'm not that guy. Okay, I'm going to refer a friend for that. I do a lot of estate. I do a lot of divorce. I do some litigation. There's sometimes some funky stuff just where the agent needs a pre-listing appraisal, or an owner's just has a sense of like, where a tenant's going to buy from an owner. Like there's all these situations where they need a private appraisal. And in fact, I think tenants buying from owner is a pretty big one right now. Okay. But in the chat, what kinds of work do you do if you've done private work, or what kind of stuff do you want to do? I would love to hear about that. Okay, but think about all these things. And I'd say when we think about the profession, totally different over the past couple of years. And, it's been a real change. And I know it's been tough, and I want people to have a successful 2024. Okay. The one thing about private work that I've learned is that it's a totally different mindset. It's 100% different animal, because it's about people. It's about relationships. Okay. Private work is about building good relationships with people. Um, AMCs are impersonal. There is no business relationship there. You are a number, you're a score, and you can be dropped in a heartbeat. And there's no potential to develop a relationship where people refer you business, okay, so to speak. And I know that this is still a viable business, but I think it's tough because it's not centered around relationship. And love hearing what people are doing: divorce, mediation, date of death. I love seeing that in the chat. But agents are often viewed as the enemy for loan appraisals, but I just want to say that that's not a winning mindset for private work. Okay, and so for some on the call today, if you found yourself in a very negative view, if you have a very negative view of agents, I want to really challenge you today to change that from this day forward. It's been transformative for my career to treat other real estate professionals with dignity, and to not talk about them, whether online or in person, where there's a mutual respect there. Okay. And so I'd just say being toxic is often normal. Wouldn't you say it's normal sometimes in appraiser forums? And I just say that for private work, though, it is not sexy. Okay. Nobody wants to work with toxic people in the real world of business. All right. And so I just want to remind everyone, be attractive to work with. In the AMC model, it doesn't matter how we act, but it's totally different in the private world. In short, I just say for some entering private work, just recognize it's a different space and it's a zone where we want to focus on relationships, where we have vision for the future. And it's actually fun, I think, to get to do relationship. And Kyle says estate, pre-listing, measurement. I get some agents who they simply know me, and I definitely measure homes also. Maybe there's some E&O conversations there about liability, but just make sure the measurement's good. All types of non-lender work, love it, love it. But I always remind people too that you can't control the market, but you can control your mindset. Like it's tough when the market changes, volume drops. Like there's no joke about that. It is tough when we wake up and be like the phone has stopped ringing, but what we can control is how we show up and our mindset. And I gotta say that the most attractive thing in private work is having that mindset to help people, be a resource, to build relationships. It is so good for business. So I'd say the good news, and Brian says it's exciting to work for people who actually want to know your opinion. Oh, absolutely. Totally agree. But I'd say the good news is that you have freedom to be yourself. There's a ton of business out there. Okay. The market has dropped for purchases and especially refis. I am looking at trends next year. I expect for volume to be low as I'm analyzing the market because there's not enough affordability to make a meaningful difference in volume. And so this is why we eye private work and go, okay, what faucets are out there that I can begin to turn on? Okay. There isn't just one way to do this. I'd say there's always hope. And working with actual people is super awesome much of the time. Okay. Not all the time, right? But the reality, I'd say getting business won't likely happen by accident. Waiting for the phone to ring, it's not a marketing strategy that's going to work. And so I just want to say that the most important thing, we've got to be cultivators of relationship. Okay. Private work isn't always fun. Some people will challenge your value. I have someone in my inbox right now that I need to respond to today who has this really detailed challenge to a value for an estate appraisal. I'm like, yay, that's fun. But some people, as you put yourself out there, they won't like you. Also, they'll critique you, and everyone has an opinion about what you should put online. But the only thing that matters is what's good for you and your business, being authentic. And I'd like to say that you might be the best appraiser the planet has ever seen, but expertise doesn't happen in a vacuum. And so if you've been lurking in the background, I want to ask you to, come up front. If we want to build public trust, which is the core tenet of USPAP, then guess what we need to see happen in public? Appraisers sharing market expertise, appraisers being out there pushing out content, appraisers answering questions, and appraisers being very professional online. Okay. So I would just say this as before we jump into some of the other basics, you have to begin, you have to start. There's risk, but you got to be like, I'm just going to start. I'm going to push myself out there. This involves a step of going, I'm just going to have to believe and put one foot in front of the other, take baby steps and be confident. Okay. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I didn't start that first blog post, which really sucked. And then the second one, and then the third one. And so we've got to just keep building. I'm actually neurotic about getting in front of people. Okay. I'm so driven, especially this year when I expect to see if we have 40% missing volume, guess what percentage of real estate agents and loan officers are eventually going to be missing from the market who will no longer refer me? So I am reinventing myself too, going, how can I increase the size of my network? Okay. So it's all about growing a network. And here's the thing, if having AMC's relationships isn't really a network. Okay, you're on a list, and then the market changes, and then that dries up. Okay, and so what you may have heard the statement, your network is your net worth. I think that is so cheesy, but it's also so true. And what I want to ask you is this next year ahead, how are you going to increase the size of your network? If you want private work, you have to get to know more people. You have to get in people's inboxes more. You have to build relationships. You're going to show up in person sometimes. And the goal is you increase your sphere so that you get more yeses instead of nos. The more people get to know you, the more they'll say, yeah, I know an appraiser. And Honestly, what the greatest thing about being an appraiser in terms of marketing is that very few appraisers actually show up to meetings. Very few appraisers do anything to actually put themselves out there. If I was a real estate agent, it would be really difficult. It's a crowded market with a lot of voices, but I think a lot of people have opportunities to say, how can I begin to position myself as this market's expert wherever you are? Okay. And so I just fully believe in, but here's the questions. And when you get this PDF, I want you to maybe, print this or, paste it up in your office and really brainstorm this. Okay. No one can do this for you. It's got to be you where you're going, who do I need to get to know? Who are the gatekeepers who hold the types of work? Who holds the keys to the kingdom? Okay. Who do you need to get in front of? What do people need from you right now? As you think about market conditions also, like the way that the market's moving, what will be the need for private appraisals in 2024? Could it be tax appeals? Could there be more litigation from people overpaying in 2021? Like what is it that might drive people to want an appraisal, right? How are you going to build good relationships with people this month? And then just a few things I just always think about is, how are people going to remember you during this housing downturn? And I would hope that all of us, that people would go like, gosh, I really like that guy Brian, or or Jessica or Howard or Joe or whoever. They really showed up, they were present, and it was a hard time in real estate, but they were really relational. And I just say the last two things, this isn't about growing a network, but hey, I had to fit it in there. If you've lost hope, how are you going to find it again? And if you become a negative person, how are you going to find optimism? Okay, that's all sort of related to the total package, but we've got to identify the gatekeepers. And so when we think about work, here's a good example in my market. I don't know if anyone knows who's local. There's a real estate agent named Matthew Hindy. Does anyone know the name of the basketball team in Sacramento? Yeah, the Kings. Yeah, the best team in the league, right? No, no, no. But they actually don't suck now, which is awesome. But this is Matthew Hindy on his Instagram the other day, and I took a screenshot of this and I thought, this is really cool. This guy has worked really hard to be the preferred real estate agent for the Sacramento Kings. And so new players come to town and they often use Matthew in his services. But I look at this and I know him, and maybe I've done one appraisal for him before. We don't do a lot of business, but here's a guy who has diversified himself, who's asked, who are the gatekeepers to working with the Kings? And he's gone after it and try and crack the code. And that's exactly what we want to do. Joe says the Lakers suck. Mark, Lakers, yeah. Suns fan. Okay. We got lots of stuff going on. But for me, this is my man cave in my garage. Actually, a realtor gave me a pool table a few months ago, and I'm using this as a way to get to know people. And this next year ahead, I just want to have people come over. I want to hang out. And the people who want to come over who work in real estate, if they only want to talk about real estate, they'll get one invite, right? I don't want to talk about that. I want to do life with people, but I've had people who do loans, and I've had real estate agents, and I'm going to have a lot of people come over to my residence to say, let's hang out, let's chill. I suck at pool, we'll suck together. And this is my plan. I want to be personal. Okay. But when you think about you, who are the gatekeepers to the types of work that you want to do? Who is the bridge? And here are some ideas. Okay, the cool part, at least from my vantage point, is it's actually very simple with private work. This isn't rocket science. Okay. I think real estate agents are one of the best resources for getting private work. Do you know why? Because a good real estate agent has to build a big network. And do you know who they need to know when a data death appraisal happens? It's so many data death referrals. And so if you are not known from real estate agents, you're not going to get those referrals. Okay. A lot of my work, probably about half of it, is actually data death. And people all the time, especially even if they're newer in real estate, then a client says, hey, I need an appraiser. And then they don't even know what a data death appraisal is. And then all of a sudden, you get referred. Okay. And so I'd say real estate agents, for me, in my business, they've been a gateway to litigation appraisals. They've been a gateway to working with CPAs. If you do a good job for someone, you get a referral from that date of death and you work directly with the CPA. It just sort of snowballs after a while because you build relationships. But for me, It's all come from building and cultivating those relationships with the agents. Okay. Now, there's a lot of ways around this. I'd say, you can work directly with CPAs. Find the list, show up to their office. I guarantee a lot of appraisers are not trying to actively meet CPAs. If there's like a local association of CPAs and a luncheon, oh my gosh, can you imagine the gold mine of joining an association like that, and just the relationships? There's actually a local rental association that I spoke at this year, and I was like, wow, what a gold mine. Property managers, getting to know them is good for like rental data, but it's also really good because they have clients where someone dies and they need an appraiser. I get a lot of referrals for that. Okay. You can go directly to attorneys. For me, I haven't actually done that. The referrals to attorneys have just sort of occurred organically for me, where there's a situation that a real estate agent hears about, then I connect with the attorney, or there's a divorce situation, and then hopefully I do a good job on the appraisal, and then maybe I get more work from that attorney. Search engines, some people don't want to deal with others at all, and if you're not personable, you're like, I hate people, it's going to be tough for you to do business. But maybe Google's your friend. A lot of people have success in getting positive 5-star ratings on their Google profile, and that works for them. Okay. I don't personally do that method because I would rather have a network of people who can refer me consistent business rather than, one-off people. Okay. But some people love that method with Google. And so there's different ways to skin the cat. I'd say social media. If you're on social media, you just start to get known after a while. Okay. And, that can be really good for business because people are like, I know that appraiser. I've definitely been referred because I'm on Twitter, or because I'm on Instagram, more Twitter than not, but it's just like on LinkedIn, I connect with a lot of different kinds of people because I'm hoping to be that the one or one of the appraisers that they know. Okay. But basically, I would say if you think about a gatekeeper, it's anyone who has a big network. And so if there's a person that's a business person locally in your market, they're probably a really good person to know because that type of person is a go-getter and they have to know people. And so I'd say rub shoulders with people like that. And one thing that's actually good for business is knowing other appraisers. Okay. There's actually, I don't know if the appraiser's on this call. I couldn't believe it. He sent me some steaks in the mail today. I've never had meat in the mail. I'm a vegetarian, Ron. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But they just showed up. There's like dry ice. It's the coolest thing. I've referred him a lot of business this year. Okay. And like, I'm not asking for gifts. Don't get me wrong, but I just wanted to share that like I have been able to be that person for another one. Or yesterday, someone reached out to me on Instagram DM and said, I have 93 acres in Placer County that needs an appraisal because someone inherited it. And I was like, I'm your guy. No, I'm not the guy. I don't appraise 93 acres. But we recently had a speaker at a meeting, a local group of appraisers last month, and I was like, I know just who to refer. And so I referred that person, right? And so other appraisers can be a really, really valuable resource. And frankly, sometimes I'm too busy for stuff, and I've referred a lot of business this year, which is really awesome. Or I'm referring Brian for the fire appraisals in California. Okay, all this stuff, and then Mark says, in addition to agents, title, escrow, lenders, photographers, home staging, all the other affiliates, absolutely. How many photographers actually know an appraiser? These are people who are going out and who are rubbing shoulders with some of the best agents in the market, agents that are paying for their services. It's so helpful to be known. If you're not known, you got to change that in 2024. Okay. And then Michael says, I just received an assignment for an estate appraisal and referred the 28 acre portion to a farm and ranch appraiser. Absolutely. It's actually good for our business when we know more people, because then if people start to view me as like, hey, I'm going to call Ryan for an appraiser referral in the East Bay. Well, I know someone who would refer there. I get, people all the time who like have a family member in Los Angeles, and I grew up in LA County, but I don't appraise there. They need an appraisal, and so who can I refer? It makes me that magnet, just like the realtor has that big network. When I grow my network larger, I know more people and I'm able to be a resource. If you have a tiny network, it's just a sign that like, okay, great. There's only room to keep, knowing more and more people. Okay. So one of the things that I would ask is which meetings can you attend? If you're not busy, hey, this is awesome because you got a lot of time to explore different meetings. But there's monthly investor meetings going on all over the place. Okay. If you don't want to join a meeting in person, like start interacting on biggerpockets.com and see if there's people talking about Tucson or your local market, or investor forums. Realtor association meetings, they typically have one big main meeting each month. And I'd say attend that, join the association, spend a couple $100 and commit to the meeting. Okay, better yet, if you join a committee, then you have to show up or they're going to kick you off the committee, right? And so find a way, however you can, to be a part of a meeting where you're consistently there. I would say monthly or weekly real estate office meetings. If you're not busy, then start showing up and maybe you target 3 or 4 different offices, okay? And maybe, excuse me, you're going there, once a week, and you're just going to be like, I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to try to just be there. I'm hanging out in the background. I'm available for questions. Okay. BNI networking gatherings. I can't stand that stuff. I really, really don't like it. I say no every time someone asks, but other people, that's like their bread and butter. That feels natural to them. And Anne says, whatever meeting I go to, I'm almost the only appraiser. Honestly, it's same here. And frankly, I do a lot of speaking. Do you know what I do when local appraisers show up to my market updates? I very often will single them out and say, here's appraisers, get to know them. Okay, this isn't a monopoly here. Okay. And there's so much business to be had. But seriously, very, very few appraisers commit. In the Sacramento Association of Realtors, I think the last time I checked, before the market changed, there are about 7,000 realtors in just that association. And I can think of one other appraiser who's a member. It's me and Bill McKnight, right? And I don't even know if Bill is anymore. Okay. And so there is profound opportunity. Appraiser meetings, again, good to know appraisers, but look at fun events. There's like golf events and things that people are doing, going to breweries. Whatever it is, like I know Amy Parker does some walking event. She's an appraiser locally, and that's involved some other realtors sometimes. Like you're a runner, like find a real estate group that's like running. I mean, there's so many ways where we don't have to reinvent the wheel, but I really love surfing, then I'm going to find some people who are in real estate who surf. Where we can have fun with our hobbies. I would just say one thing I don't do, by the way, I don't sponsor golf holes. I don't like the idea of, dropping 500, 700 bucks on being the gold sponsor for an event. If you do that and it's good for your business, awesome. Totally not my thing. um, but I'd say pick one thing or a few things and commit no matter what. Okay, just say I'm showing up at Keller Williams at this location on Wednesday. I'm showing up to EXP if they have a physical meeting. All those things. Okay, YPNs are always good, as Anthony says. Absolutely. See, the realtors are putting together events. They're doing the heavy lifting for you, and just show up. I promise you, you will be one of probably the only appraiser, but you might be one of a few. Okay. Here's a local realtor that I saw on his Instagram the other day, and his name's Corey McKinney, and he says, I'm working with a lot of investors lately, and I noticed there isn't a dedicated real estate investing group on Facebook for El Dorado County. Anyone want to join? And I'm like, wow, that's great. I don't want to join because I really don't do much in El Dorado County, but I thought like sometimes we see things on social media, then we go, oh, that might be a good place for me to be, just to listen, to lurk, or whatever. And Mark says just sponsored a golf tournament. My logo was on front and back of every golf cart. And see, that's awesome. That's good for Mark. I will never personally do that. Never say never, but it's not my vibe. But for Mark, like that is awesome. Way to go, Mark. I'd say a couple practical tips. By the way, is everyone still here, or have I put everyone to sleep? Okay, I hope this is helpful. We're going to get really practical. I'd say have a real profile picture. If on your socials on LinkedIn and Facebook, Instagram, if you have some anime or a picture of Trump or Biden, like whatever, like get rid of that crap. You have to have a real picture because people do business with real people. Start following or friending local real estate people on social media. Okay, think about it this way. It's not weird when you request friendship because do you know what a realtor needs? A big network. You're increasing the size of their network, but what you're trying to do is infiltrate their network and you want to be their go-to person, okay? Not in any weird way. I just challenge that Facebook isn't just for family. I know some people use it that way, but remember, Facebook wants to use us to make money, and so I say let's use them to build a network. Okay, and so personal family stuff that can happen on or offline, but I use my personal Facebook. I have like I'm gonna be that guy one day who has too many friends and who's like, who wants to unfriend me because I've got 5,000. I'm almost at 4,000. I'm that obnoxious guy, but people request friendship, and as long as they're not porn, like or as long as they don't live in the Philippines, some random person, like I'm gonna accept their friendship unless they're political. Then I'm like, I don't need that crap in my life. Okay, but I would say my personal Facebook is what gets the most business. When I show up to meetings, do you know what people are talking about? Not like my business page and these glorious stats so much, but they're like, hey, tell me about, what are you building right now for woodworking? Or did you find insurance that was cheaper for your kids? Or, all the stuff that I'm just trying to share life. Okay. I'd say a really practical step, comment on people's content. Okay. Now, if there's a social media manager putting out something for the real estate agent, then you'll figure that out very quickly. But if you comment on people's content, on their Instagram videos, on their Facebook posts, you start to build relationship. Okay. Be that human and interact. I'm telling you, social media comments are gold. When you look at a blog post, there's very few comments oftentimes. What if you were that person to leave a comment? I know a local realtor named Doug Reynolds who's going to come over and play pool at my house soon. We're trying to work that out. But years ago, I started commenting on YouTube, and he was one of the people where I'm like, I like what that guy's saying. Okay. If I don't like what someone's saying, I'm not going to try to build relationship with it. But I have a really good relationship with Doug. He's a good guy. I am still subscribed to his YouTube today, and I leave a comment on almost every video that shows up in my inbox or my YouTube notifications. I take 1 second and then I'm just in a small way, I'm like, I support what you're doing. There's there's loan officers in your market who are pushing out a ton of content. Okay. And when you comment on their stuff, do you know who they're going to want to be a part of their panel? Or when there's private appraisal referrals, that's good stuff. There's a local loan officer named Matt Gouget, and I'm good friends with him. And he actually used my blog post this week for some of his content, which was awesome. But I comment on mostly every one of his videos. When he does a YouTube live at 3 p.m. on Monday, I click over in the background while I'm working and I leave some thoughtful comment because I'm just in a small way going, man, I support you. Okay. And let's see, Kathy says at every gathering for my associations, I get asked appraisal questions, 100%. And then what's cool is that those questions can become social media posts, right? Joe says, me too, Kathy. How much time do you, Alanya, Ryan, how much time per day or week do you spend on social media for work? I'm honestly, I'm there probably too much. But I don't know that I can boil it down to a certain amount, but I post a few times on my socials every day. Don't do that on your Facebook page. I'm in a different place, sort of as market analyst, data guy, but I'm posting every single day. Okay. I'm not on there right now though, so I have boundaries. But I'd say real estate people share stuff that's actually helpful. That's what people want. And so Kathy goes to a meeting and then people start, asking her questions. And then you're going, fantastic. I can write about this real quick on LinkedIn, maybe tomorrow or whenever. But real estate people might tag you in events if you start attending. And so if you're not on social media, then you're not getting tagged. Okay. You don't have to be on social media to be successful. I'm just saying that, like, if we want to fish and catch fish, let's go where the fish are. And that's just where they are right now. Okay. And yes, I did say that. I said, be careful about politics and crazy shit, right? Like sometimes I'm really surprised what people are talking about. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, did you really just say that? It's nasty. Or like I'm just going to say it. I saw some appraisers saying that the Maui fires were caused by lasers. And I'm sorry, but that is like a conspiracy theory. Okay. And so not good for business. Joe, would you agree with me? Maybe everyone's else like, I'm going to get off this call right now. We got to be careful of what we're putting out there. Okay. And so, yes, I'm solo. Like I said, I'm not the poster child for business efficiency. I don't want to run a big business. And that's why I refer so many appraisers. Could I do it differently? Sure. I'm just not built that way. Okay. Like I said, I love woodworking though. And when I show up to meetings at real estate, people say, what are you building lately? I'm, in my later 40s and I build longboards, or this was some tiki thing I built for the backyard. And like, it's not amazing craftsmanship, it's good enough, but like, I'm sharing not just on my personal Facebook. It would be really weird if all I shared all day long was like thoughts on the market. I have that stuff that I share in other places on online. Okay. Um, don't offend, Tom. Totally agree. I think everything is so polarizing on social media, and I'm just saying that that's not good for business. If you think stuff, that's cool, but we just maybe shouldn't say it all the time. This is Tanya. I don't know if she's on this call, but I think Tanya does an awesome job as an appraiser on LinkedIn, putting herself out there. And I love this. She says, "Hey, all, I'm bringing my market snippets to a new format," and here she is, like trying some video. I think that's totally cool. Maybe you're a video person, maybe you're just text, maybe you take photos, maybe you do memes, like maybe you're funny, maybe you're not, maybe you're a nerd. Like, just cater to your strengths and you'll find your people. Okay. But I just want to say that people don't want to hear about USPAP, believe it or not. I don't know about you. I like, hey, USPAP instructors on this call, like, this is my least favorite class. I know I'm supposed to be like, I love USPAP because I'm an appraiser. Maybe I'm just alone, but people honestly don't care about any of this stuff. You know what the real estate community cares about? What's the market doing? How can I do my job better? Okay. How can I pull comps better? How do I wrap my mind around value? And so if you're like Kathy and you're available to people, like, it's a good thing when you start getting text messages and people are like, hey, I've got this question. How do I deal with this? I'm really busy. So what I text people back is, hey, I'm going to jump in the car at 10:30 a.m. Would you mind giving me a call right then? And they're always cool with that. They're like, thank you for your time. I'm like, absolutely. Okay. Anthony says I have a face made for radio. So that's awesome. But I'd say you don't have to be a stats wizard or graph nerd. You don't have to be me or anyone else. I just say, what questions are people asking you about appraisals or the market? Okay. I'd say look to your sent email folder. Okay. Or look to online forums for ideas. If people are asking you questions on email or in person or anywhere else, or even stuff you see online, you're going, great. I can repackage that and write about it, publicly on a blog post. Or if you think, I'm going to post on LinkedIn twice a week or once a day, and then you can all of a sudden start to keep a folder of ideas handy where you're like, wow, that one question that Alyssa asked me was really good. I'm just going to turn that into a quick thought. Okay, you don't have to share these revolutionary graphs. So let's see here. But I'd say introduce topics on your social to stimulate conversation. So if someone asks you a question going, hey, I'm going to bring that up, not to try to be sensational, but this week on my Facebook page, I mentioned non-permitted additions, and that's a big topic. We could do like part, A and B and C and D and E, but I mentioned that and it led to some good discussion. Okay. And so, whatever it is, or people might ask you a question about, are smoke alarm or alarms required? What about carbon monoxide alarms? These are the silly things that people ask in real estate, but they're meaningful where say, by the way, it's CO alarm, not CO2. It's a water heater, not hot water heater. So, but Anthony says use graphics in your posts, not just text. It will get more attention. I definitely co-sign on that. However, I will say on a Facebook business page, Facebook's algorithm can be weird. I use just text sometimes, and then I might share a graphic the next time and such. I've noticed if it's only graphics, it's jacked up. LinkedIn, I haven't noticed anything in their algorithm that messes with any images at all. Sometimes Facebook puts down the clamps. Super weird vibes on their pages. Okay, but I'd say, yeah, write down those post ideas, whether it's chicken scratch, maybe it's on your cell phone in the Notes app. Maybe you have a folder on your desktop where you just drop photos in each time, and you're like, this is maybe something that I can talk about at some point in the future. Okay. Sharing stats, I think one of the best things we can do as appraisers, we have market expertise. And I think it's so powerful when we get to share that. Now, not every appraiser is built this way, so wear your own armor to battle. But I'd say that if you think about it, share stats on socials if it's your thing. But what I would challenge everyone to do is maybe think simply rather than like, I'm going to write a dissertation about the housing market every month. What if you had a very simple image like this where you compared year over year stats? You have an Excel spreadsheet and you just change the numbers every single month. Okay. There's a learning curve to figure out how to do this. I actually have something on my blog. It's sacramentoappraisalblog.com/graphs. I have a video where I talk about how to make this. Honestly, my video kind of sucks, but hopefully it gives you a few tips. But what if you committed once a month on the 10th of every month? It's in my calendar. I'm going to pull my stats and then push this out. Then immediately this becomes something that people can start to look forward to. You can put it on all your socials, and it's an easy, there's a very small barrier to entry, okay? But imagine if you just committed, no matter how busy you get, I'm going to push this out. That's how you become a market expert over time, okay? Yeah, there's George Dale. I'm so grateful for these videos you made on how to do this. Very helpful. Thanks, Jessica. And if you ever see something that I do, you're like, how did you do that? I'll make another video. Just ask, no problem. But here's crowds forming when we start to talk about appraisals. I don't know about you. This is what happens in my life, especially when we're talking about USPAP. No, absolutely not, right? And so, but we can figure out how to share interesting things about our job and to make it interesting. We want to be interesting people online that are sharing life and then sharing struggles along the way. One thing I haven't shared yet is so crazy. My youngest son got in, and please don't share this with anyone yet, but my youngest son got in a car accident yesterday and with one of my clients. Isn't that crazy? And she was totally cool, but oh my gosh, yesterday was an emotional day. Everyone's okay, she's okay. My insurance costs are going to go through the roof, I'm sure, but how crazy is that? I'll share that eventually, right, in a subtle way. But a few last things. I'd say speaking in real estate offices. And by the way, is anyone a speaker? Do you like doing that? Is that like the worst fear ever? In the chat, let me know. Do you like to get in front of people, or is that just painful? I want to say, be available for Q&A. Real life, it's okay to share your experience. It makes you human. Absolutely. It takes practice. I love speaking. I get nervous, before I speak too. And sometimes I'm speaking in front of really big groups, small groups, but I'd say one of the best things you can do for real estate offices is just let them know, like, hey, I'm available for Q&A. I like that aspect because it takes the pressure off. You don't have to put together this big presentation. Sometimes people will be like, can you come give a presentation on solar panels? And I'm like, no, I can't. But here's what I can do. And so don't be afraid to put down a boundary for what you can and can't do. But ask people if they need a speaker. Hey, do you need someone to come in and do an appraisal minute? Or can I come in and talk for 10 minutes about how to talk with appraisers? I'm going to give you a resource in a couple slides on that note. The best content, though, helps people do their job. Like I said, people don't care about USPAP, but if you provide any content where people can understand the market more or talk about things, super, super helpful. And so do you see how private work is about being a resource, building relationship? Like that's what we're trying to do here. And I'd say if you ever are in a speaking situation, at the end, have a call to action and say, hey, I have this thing for you, and I'll email it to you if you give me your business card when I pass around this hat. Or you can be like, here's my cell phone, text me right now. And and enter me in your phone as appraiser Mark, because anytime you have a question, I want you to text me. What we want to do as a result of these meetings, we want to get into people's inbox. We want to get in their phones. I know that sounds creepy. I'm not being creepy, but definitely what we have to do. So let's see here. Here's one of the things that I like most, a presentation that I used to do a lot. I actually used to call it, what the heck should we do? And I would talk for either 30 minutes or 60 minutes. What I like about this is it's visual and the people aren't looking at me, they're looking at the screen. And basically I say that this presentation is designed to just ask questions. How would appraisers deal with situation? There's maybe like 50 pictures in there. And then I have a clicker and I'm just scrolling really quick. And then there's a picture of, this crazy house. I'm like, how do we pull comps on this? Or here's a busy street. What do we do with this? What's the value of a pool? Or there's a picture of a water heater. And I'm like, is this an electric water heater or a gas one? And then people are like, I don't know. So the next slide shows the difference between the two. And so we go through just like quick, bam. And, maybe there's a slide with some unknown blackish substance. And I say, what is this? And then they're like, it's mold. And you're like, wait, are you a mold specialist? And so we have all these quick conversations. It's like popcorn, boom, 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 and fast paced and really, really fun idea, just in case that might work. But here's one thing I want to give you, the link when you get the PDF. And we are in a place where This is what I call a cheat sheet for agents. It's an information sheet. It's a resource that I put out there, years ago. It's probably one of the best things that I made. It looks like 9 years ago. And it's an information sheet. It's a Word document, and I also have a PDF. And I want agents, when they meet me at a property, to answer these questions. These are the questions that I'm asking agents. And so I want to train them to be like, here's how you can talk to appraisers. This is the kind of stuff we want. And so what I'd like for you to do is you can maybe click on this link later. And I have actually a 20-minute video where I explain it, and take from that, make it your own. Okay. If you ever post this online, please give me credit where it's due. But when we show up to a meeting and we have something to give people, remember that can be powerful when we're saying, I'd like to get your business card to send you an information sheet that can revolutionize your career, right? However we want to say it. But I love when local appraisers, when agents use it on them, and then sometimes this ends up in the appraisal report. And I always tell agents, you better be honest because you're putting this in writing, right? And so, food for thought, but I think that this makes us a resource. If you're ever thinking about talking in a real estate office, this can be something that you print and then you just walk through line by line with people. It doesn't have to be a fancy PowerPoint, but your notes are right there. Okay. And if I can help with that in any way, but I think that's very, very powerful. Interesting. Ernie's talking about Clubhouse. I've not really on Clubhouse. If that's, there could be action there. That's awesome. Solar is boring. Yeah, Mark, we know you never talk about solar. And then I think the last couple things here, I'm thinking about market trends. What I want us to do when we think about laws that are changing, when we think about the future, let's sift that through the funnel of business. Okay. And so I'd say, what laws are changing that might create more work? Okay. And so, or is there anything related to insurance or fires in California that's happening? Or is there anything relating to ADUs? Or, what about in California, there's a new law that's going to allow people to turn a single family with an ADU into a condo, and then they could sell the ADU, privately, right? Or you think about in California, there's a law called SB 9 that allows people to legally split a lot and build a duplex. I guarantee there's people out there right now who are doing that, and they probably need some sort of valuation. I'm honestly not fast enough to serve there. But I'd say, what trends are we poised to see in 2024 based on current stats? That's always the thing we want to ask. What would people need if we have more economic carnage, if we hit a recession? Like how might that change if people are getting into credit card debt? Like, how could that influence, like, what can I keep on the horizon to think about for potentials for business for next year? Right. And I'd say, here's a company called Build Casa in California. I don't know if they're going to expand elsewhere, but they're sending out a ton of mailers, and they're doing lot splits in Sacramento with plans of expanding to the whole state soon, and whatever they do nationally. But I talked with their owners, before they launched in the market. I'm not fast enough to help them with anything. But if they do need an appraiser, I wonder if you could develop that expertise in a market where zoning laws are changing and we're going to be building more on different parcels. Like, I just feel like there's a lot of opportunity for appraisers to get out ahead of that, to be the expert. Okay. And I would just say, study market conditions. Purchase applications have increased for 4 weeks in a row. I don't know what they did this week yet. I didn't look. But we think about tax appeals, new state laws changing, governmental issues. You hear about a story of, an entity, a government taking over a certain area. Then, well, great. Well, who is running their eminent domain? Find out. Okay. And maybe you could be a part of that. There is one appraiser on the call, I won't say who has been really, really successful and who has had a transformed business in recent years because the state made or the county made a real error in their assessments, and the appraiser, took advantage of that, saw the writing on the wall, and is doing a lot of appeals because of that. And so props to that person for looking at a change in the market and then being there for that. Brian Melsheimer's on this call right now, and he is the exemplary example of seeing a trend and run into there's fire issues and becoming the expert. Okay, I know he did some consulting for people in Maui when the Maui fires happened. He has a lot of wisdom to share. Okay, so last but not least, here's this, and I love Ann says Toastmasters, excellent program. Absolutely. And Donna says, Ryan, please stress the importance of competencies for appraisers doing non-lender work. Absolutely. That goes without saying. Maybe I should have said it. I'm saying it now. Don't accept something that you're not competent for. I turn stuff down all the time. Just shared that example. I don't do 93 acres. I'm not competent to do that. I don't know how to do that. And so, let's make sure that we're not accepting stuff that's going to get us into hot water. But here's some stuff to do right now. What I don't want this to happen is that I just spewed out a bunch of stuff for an hour, talked a little longer than I thought, and then people are like, okay, that was really nice. Now I'm going to do my thing. I want people to take action. And so if you're going to, here's like the one slide to really think. I'd say set up Venmo, Zelle, PayPal, Apple Pay. In the private world, people want to pay in all different ways. I get paid a lot digitally. Venmo, surprisingly, quite a bit. Okay. And so I have a personal Venmo account. I don't have a business account. You can judge me for using the personal one, but that's what I do. But I find a lot of people do the good old fashioned check. Obviously, lawyers always give me a check. The estate often wants to write a check, but you got to have that digital payment somehow. There's a lot of ways to do that. Fill out your online social profiles, super easy to do. Start interacting more with local real estate content. Find local content, subscribe to it, and then just interact. Man, if someone's putting out a blog weekly, be that person on the comments, or there's a YouTube video weekly from a loan officer or something, like someone you actually like, then great, start leaving comments because you will start to get to be known. I say start pushing out helpful content every week. Okay, write down ideas and look in your sent folder, but you've got to have a plan for building a bigger network. But part of that involves like I've got to start like sharing some stuff on my LinkedIn, and if it's once a week, that's fine. Don't try to write a dissertation, but you got to be like, okay, what am I dealing with in my business? What questions are people asking me? And that's a sign probably what to talk about. Okay. Pick some meetings to try out and commit to some. I think one meeting per week is very doable. If you don't have anything going on in life right now, I would probably be doing 2, 3, 4 meetings a week. I would be neurotic about I've got to get in front of people to generate leads and then taper off eventually to be like, I'm just going to do this one meeting a week, whatever it looks like. But there are realtor meetings right now. Like those are probably the ones that I would recommend committing to. Think about who's going to need an appraisal in 2024. I'd say brainstorm about gatekeepers. Who are those people? How are you going to reach them? I think that's one of the most important things where we got to get strategic and be like, if I want to do more divorce appraisal work, I'm going to need to ask, how do I get in there? If I want to do more estate, I've got to ask, like, who are the CPAs in town? Who can I connect with? Where are these people getting together to meet regularly? Can I join that association? Do they need a speaker? Do they need some, a sponsor? I'm Mark Bueller and I want to sponsor their golf tournament. All these things. I'd say, how will you increase the size of your network? Most important question. Add real estate agents, attorneys, and CPAs into your network on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram. Start following people. Maybe not a spree. You don't want to be like, I'm going to add 100 people a day. That gets weird. Okay. If you have like a lot of baggage on your personal Facebook and you feel comfortable starting to add people in there, like you might want to go back and just delete some stuff and be like, man, I've been toxic, or just the stuff I'm talking about isn't probably appropriate. And so maybe start over. Maybe it's a new thing for you. Let's say the last two things. If you've been a lone ranger, it's time to connect with people. Okay. If you haven't picked out, I know sometimes people like words for the year. Here's a suggestion for 2024, like relationship. Okay. Because I think that's the hallmark of private work. The core of it is building good relationships because that's where referrals come out of. And last but not least, if you've been toxic, it's time to leave that baggage in 2023 if you want to be successful in the private sector, or just in life. That's no good for anyone. I guess I have closing thoughts. It takes time to build non-lending work, and it's worth it. It's a marathon approach. Okay, you're not going to get all these referrals overnight. But there are appraisers around the country who I know that they're doing okay this year because they've been intentional. Okay, there's one who just got his license that I talked with a couple times this year. We had a couple sessions together, and it's awesome to see like the referrals are starting to come in. Okay, change your mindset about the real estate community. Probably the number one thing here. Just be yourself and you will find your people. Don't copy anyone. Take inspiration from some. If you like what I do, cool. If you like what other people do, great. Just be yourself though. Okay. Commit to the plan stick to the plan, and that's how we find success. Okay. Um, so here's a link where I have maybe 10 tutorials. Honestly, some of them are super old. I would probably do things differently now. If there's something of value for you there, great. This week, I'm going to push out a new template that will instantly make maybe 10 or 12 graphs. I'm doing it for local real estate agents on the neighborhood level. I did one of these a couple years ago. Honestly, I think it kind of sucked. So my goal is for this one not to do so. Here's something from Appraiser Fest. I think I meant to take out that slide, but when I spoke there 5 years ago, do I believe in everything I said there? Hopefully so, but there's a presentation for you to download if you want. I write about the market once a week. You're welcome to follow along. I'm on all these social platforms. Would love to connect with you there as long as you keep your clothes on, as long as you're not political. I'm totally cool to hang with you. But that's me. That's that. And would love to talk shop if anyone has questions. I'll stick around for as long as people want. But like I said, the goal here is nuggets, and I hope you walk away with just a few things. And like I said, it's not rocket science. This is just relationship, and you are free to be you. Go be you, and I look forward to hearing about your success.
So,
So
Ryan, I want to jump in here. Donna made a really good point that um, if you're going to switch over to this type of stuff, you need to build competency. Um, so you need to learn how to do non-lender work because it's significantly different than lender work.
yeah, 100% agree. I recommend from personal experience, Josh's class. I know he's got
Yeah,
an OREP, probably in other places. He's a really smart guy, and I'm sure there's other classes. I don't get anything about mentioning that, but take a class. But ask other appraisers too. Hey, what do you do? What are the 5 things you need to do for an IRS appraisal, right?
yeah,
I would
and
take the other stance and say like it's also not rocket science.
yeah.
Anyone can do an appraisal for a state, and so we also kind of have to not like prop it up to where it's like, wow, this thing that's really difficult. I don't think it is.
And I agree with you. I think estate work is the same level as lending work. Divorce work or litigation, you've got to step up. Um, I, I want to mention Anna Rourke, appraisal today. Anne's on the call. Uh, she has a newsletter that goes out once a month. I write for it occasionally. She has um, probably 25 years. Is that about right? 25 years of archives on how to do private party work. So if you're just getting into it and you want marketing ideas, you want business ideas, her newsletter is certainly worth checking out. Um, the other thing I'd say, your local appraiser association and other appraisers in your market that those are good places to, first of all, trade referrals, but also to get advice on how to do this work. So that's
Definitely.
my educator speak. I had to jump in.
No, right on. Yeah, and thanks everyone for the kind words. I appreciate it. It's an honor to get to do this. But yeah, if you have follow up, great. I know people probably got to go do their thing, but if anyone has questions, happy to talk shop. And Nina says, do you have a link to the newsletter you mentioned? Maybe you could post that in the chat. I follow a lot of appraisers on LinkedIn, and I like to see what people are saying about their markets. Frankly, I wish there was more information out there. Honestly, I would love to see more people share some stats once a month. Be very powerful. What's funny is that you do develop competency over time because you know why? You share something, then people ask you questions, and
Yeah.
stats are like a layer of the onion. You're going, oh my gosh, I don't know how to answer that. And so that's why I'd say start small. There's a learning curve, but uh, just know that I am learning new stuff about the market every single week. I'm tailoring the way I do things because I'm like, okay, I want to weed out bad habits and get into better ones, but there's always something new to learn. And so you just have to jump in the learning curve somewhere. Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions here? Non-lender competency, Ernie's the man.
Yeah. I would add two other things. There's a number of people on the call who have blogs like you and post regularly. You got to mention Tom. It's great to see him. He's probably the most consistent appraiser writer besides you and Jonathan Miller. Jonathan Miller's in Argentina now, so I guess he couldn't join us. I don't
Antarctica,
understand.
Antarctica.
Oh, and no, I think
Did
he
he
took the
go?
ferry. I think he took the ferry to
Oh,
Argentina today.
good for
So I
him. You can,
yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah. You
I think
can't
he's
stay in
in
Antarctica
Patagonia.
forever. Good for
Yeah.
him. Okay, well you're like following stalking him or something. No, I'm just kidding. I need to read his notes.
Yeah, I
Um,
haven't read it either.
so one thing that helps me to stay in touch with the market, I watch Altos Research. I watch their video every week. That's on the national perspective. Lance Lambert on Twitter is one of the best follows. He used to be the editor of Fortune magazine, but he just recently started a newsletter. It's called Residential Club, and he puts out some really interesting stuff. And I like that it's objective. Anything that has spin, I don't listen to. I listen to zero housing doom channels because my superpower as an appraiser and a housing analyst is my objectivity and neutrality. And when we don't employ objectivity, it breaks down credibility. And so I'm just saying that, like, try to find people who you really like what they say. I read Jonathan Miller's notes every Friday. He's just some of the things he says about the market. I love his sense of humor. I always draw some inspiration there. And so, yeah, Resi Club is awesome. But yeah, there's other people out there. I get Bill McBride from Calculated Risk. He's got a
Yeah.
blog, and I'm there's very few people I want to hear from in my inbox every week. I'm willing to hear from Resi Club once a day and Bill McBride once a day because I think they push out good stuff. It just helps me stay abreast to issues with, okay, what's going on with, foreclosures, what's going on with, different aspects of the market. So just something to think about. And then let's see, Tiffany says, for those that do both lending and private work, are your pricings for basic reports similar? Or are you able to charge more for private work? That's a great question. I wonder if, people can speak into that. I mean, I haven't done a private appraisal in or a lender appraisal in a long time, but I would say my fees would definitely be higher for private. But it also depends on the job at hand. So.
Yeah, I have a target hourly rate, and I target the same rate for the little bit of lending I have left and private party work. If complexity goes up, then I bump it up, but
Right on.
and risk goes up, so I take those into account.
And thanks. And hey, Rob. Rob is awesome. He's a local appraiser. So I'm telling you, hey, local appraisers, come to my market talks. Rob, come to the one I have one in February at PCAR. That's your like county association, dude. Show up. I will call you out in the crowd. I'll tell people to use you. I totally all about sharing the love there. Um, so depends on the scope of work. Absolutely. You don't have to pay for an imaginary AMC fee. You know what I find about fees though, everyone? When I get a personal referral from someone, they don't balk at the fee. I know right away if someone's a personal referral because they say, hey, Tiffany, blah, 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 referred you. Then I'm like, oh, that's so great. I've got to remember to thank Tiffany. But when someone says, hey, I just want to call and see what your fees are, I know that they're shopping around and I want to end that
Yeah.
conversation as quickly as possible. I'll be professional, but I find that I get very, very little resistance when I've given a personal referral, or sometimes people are like, wow, that's a little bit higher than I was expecting, but you were referred personally, so I'll do it. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's one reason why to have a bigger network also. I feel like it helps with fees. I actually
Yeah.
drastically undercharged for a lawyer recently. And then I was like, whoa, scope of work, this thing is crazy. And then I charged a much, much different fee than we originally anticipated. So we negotiated that. I wasn't stuck in that original fee. The more
Yeah.
we started to talk about what they wanted, I was like, holy crap. And then it ended up settling. And then so I determined that I maybe did about 40% of the work. So I said, okay, we'll settle on 40% of that fee. So um, and then Ernie says, regarding fees, they are similar, but when your established fee is not a huge concern with clients, you can increase or be higher. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and isn't it weird right now? I feel like I'm getting so many emails where people are nickel and diming over fees, and it just rubs me the wrong way in an inflationary environment. So I'm super careful about my stuff. I'm at a very round number right now with what I, charge for a standard fee, and I'm not going to raise in this environment, ahead across the board. I feel really comfortable. I'm probably getting, a lot more than a typical AMC fee too. So if the public's accustomed to paying the AMC fee, you can charge them accordingly. Yeah, Mark, absolutely. I think sometimes when appraisers jump into private work, and I'm not going to say what to charge, we want to be really careful here with antitrust things. I think sometimes appraisers are, maybe not in touch with the fee market. And it's something that's constantly changing depending on what the market's doing, how saturated things are. Absolutely. And then let's see, Ben says, Ryan, there's a monthly investor meetup in Rochester, New York. I feel intimidated going there and sharing that I am an appraiser. Did you have any of this anxiety when you started out? Absolutely. It's I think as appraisers, we're sort of that crowd that we're the low-hanging fruit. People make fun of us online. There's so many Instagram reels. I'm like, oh gosh, someone just send me another one about appraisers? I don't want to see it. But yeah, I mean, I feel that, but that's where I just say, just step out in confidence, be yourself. And the more value you provide to people, the more that they'll be like, well, I really care what you think. And they start to ask you questions, and then you know that they're starting to respect you. One of the cool things about investor meetups, though, first of all, there probably aren't any appraisers who are going there, is that there's going to be hard money lenders there. And I view hard money lenders as a little bit more private work because there's no AMC. It's a direct client. I don't really do hard money, maybe once a year, but there's absolutely business to be had out there. I actually spoke in a hard money lender office. I do that all the time. I don't actually do work for people, but they hire me to speak, which is awesome. But anytime you go to an investor meeting, there are multiple hard money lenders there trying to get in touch with, selling their product. And so I'd say try that out. There's a great local meetup. If for any local appraisers here, Bobby Peterson is doing an awesome job on his socials. He's really diversified his business well. Check out his meeting, and they do once a month. There's a Bigger Pockets meeting locally that meets in West Sacramento. Not my vibe. I just haven't gone. I don't have time. I'm in a different place, but like I said, if I was hungry, shoot, I'd be at all these. But hey, anxiety is normal. I get the dry heaves sometimes before I talk somewhere. I get nervous. I care about all the little things. What do I look like? How do I sound like on video? Just I think 2 months ago or 3 months ago, I actually finally started making Instagram reels. I've resisted it for so long because I hate the idea of like the algorithm favors this one thing. I have to do it. I don't want to be told what to do for anything, right? But I came to a point where it's like, you know what? I have got to put myself out there regardless of whether I'm self-conscious or not, because this is sort of, I'm going to miss a lot of people if I'm not putting that out. And so there's a thing where I think sometimes we just have to recognize, like, maybe I just have to do this one thing. If even I'm uncomfortable, maybe the algorithm favors it, but I don't know, to each his own. But Jessica says, what are the most common topics to cover in a presentation to agents? I want to start doing that, but I'm not sure where to start. Honestly, I think one of the most powerful ones you can do is the information sheet for appraisers, because, and you can listen to the way that I framed it. If you take any value from that, there's a YouTube video where I did a talk with a loan officer years ago where I talked through this sheet. But I think it's a really strong value proposition to say, like, hey, like, I have something that you can use in every escrow. I tell agents, I want you to be extremely proactive about the information that you share with appraisers. You're sharing data and perspective, because here's what happens. As soon as a deal goes south, the appraisal comes in lower, then the agent shares all the information that they could have shared in advance. And so I think it's a very, very powerful tool. I can't tell you how many times I've shared this. And so I would say start there, or just start with Q&A, okay? You don't have to come with this big market update presentation. Like, if anyone wants to see my market updates full of memes and stuff, I'll send it to you. But like, that's not going to be your pattern for life. Like, I've cultivated this type of presentation and expertise over many, many years. And I'm a teacher at heart. If that's not you, like, wear your own armor, right? And then someone said they'd started talking about ANSI. Okay, that's cool. Q&A is great. Yeah, I think there's so many ideas, but just asking, like, maybe you ask an office, like, hey, what do your agents need right now? What would be helpful for them? I think that's totally cool. On a side note, sometimes in years past, people would ask me to bring donuts. I honestly resisted it. Like I said, I'm a rebel. Mark totally wants to sponsor. He'll bring donuts, but I was always kind of like, I'm going to bring value in other ways. I'm not bringing you donuts. So don't listen to me on that, but I'm just saying. Um, yeah. And don't bring food. I don't want to be someone's little food whore. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not there to bring food. I'm there to bring value, you know? And so that's why I always resisted it. Philosophically, for me, it was a big deal. But other appraisers might be like, yeah, like I'm going to show up with Chipotle. And like, great, you do you, right? Um, what else there? Mark says I stopped bringing food, but around here it is pay to play. Absolutely. And that's where we know our markets. What are other people doing? How do we stand out? I just think doing something though, so many people are doing absolutely nothing, and or they're being really negative about the real estate community and they're literally sabotaging their businesses. So yeah, Jessica, find those, but look in your sent email folder. Try to find places online where people are talking about the local market. It's honestly kind of difficult to do because most of the real estate forums, I don't belong to them anymore because it's just too toxic. But like maybe scroll through some of those posts and just look like what are people asking? Look at appraiser and then like what are the questions people are asking? That could be all your content right there.
And
Um,
a pretty easy one is property conditions. So, what are the things that a lender requires for any listing in order for it to sell? In California, hot water straps are required. If it's FHA, chip paint, all the appliances work, stuff like that. You can look at all of the things that would be conditioned by a lender, and then you can take pictures with you and show the pictures as examples and say, hey, this is all the stuff you need to do ahead of time to make sure your listing is ready to go for when you get that off. That's a very easy one to do. And
Hey,
it's
Ryan,
always,
it's Howard.
yeah.
no, that's awesome. I'm glad you said that, Joe. Hey, Howard.
For anybody who has any kind of apprehension, the easiest thing to do with regard to getting involved with your realtor association, every single realtor association has classes on how to use the MLS and their tax service. Who knows how to use it better than us? Just show up
Definitely.
and attend. You're there, you can participate in the discussion. You're going to bring something to the table in a room. It's a target rich environment.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad you said that because I think sometimes we think about this idea like, well, what am I going to share? But I'd say share stuff share stuff that you're good at and don't try and completely reinvent the wheel. If you've already got 3 or 4 wheels in your wheelhouse, so to speak, then, it's just time to share those, because you already know it and you're good. And then the cool part is that something goes well and then they're like, oh, wow, well, can you come back? But sometimes it's the stats we share, and we can share some interesting stuff that people aren't aware of. But that's a whole nother thing. We don't have to think about that. But any other questions or insight? People can certainly jump in and share sort of what's worked for them. But I like
So
Howard.
I'll offer a couple others. If you just go to the marketing meeting every week and people ask questions and there's stuff that comes up every week that an appraiser can have input on. Yesterday, we started talking about uh, uh, the guest speaker was looking for a school bond for our local market. And so I remembered that Fannie and Freddie said you can't say school or student in reports anymore because of the bias. So I talked about bias, and then someone asked about something else, and that gave me another 10 minutes to bore them to death. The other thing I would suggest is if you're not going on tour, go on tour. So go see your comps from the inside before they hit the market. Talk to the listing agent. Hey, why'd you price it the way you did? What do you think are the positives? What do you think are the negatives? They're going to ask you how much it's worth. Did they get the price right? And you say, I don't know. I didn't do the research. I'll have to get back to you, but it'll be interesting to see where it sells at. But go see your comps and go on go on tour, leave your business card, and then the agents will start remembering you. So when you call them with questions, they'll start answering your questions.
Yeah. And real quick, I'm just scrolling through some of the questions too. And, someone was just like, I just don't know where to start. I think that was Jessica, with what do I do? Do I build a slide deck? Do I, and I just say start simple, do what feels comfortable for you. I really like PowerPoint just because I think that it gives something, it's interesting, it's visual. And so I bought a clicker years ago, and that's all I need. I have a USB drive. I show up early, plug in the presentation. We use that. I like because it can assist conversation, but that's not natural for a lot of people. Okay. But I think the most natural place is just do Q&A, or just the starting place is probably just show up to meetings, just start to get to know people. And then eventually as people get to know you, maybe then they'll be like, hey, we really want your insight. But yeah, definitely not just one way to do it. Just a matter of getting out there. I think some people said some other stuff. Let's see.
I could add to that, Ryan. I kind of started
Mark.
in the same way you did with the going to my real estate meetings. And it was because I went to an appraisal, and the realtor was actually an appraiser who was transitioning into real estate brokerage and sales. And she said, you should come to this meeting in Huntington Beach. So I did. I'm like, are you sure it's cool? And I was a wallflower in the beginning. Then I got a name tag that said Mark Appraiser. And then I recognized a few people from way back, and I started to integrate with these people. And it took a while. I was freaked out at first, but then, yeah, I started to hang out with these people and realize they're not the enemy. And now it's been 10 years, and I never sponsored their golf tournament before, but now if they looked at that logo and that name, they would be like, oh yeah, that guy. And so it's gotten to the point now where I was paying to go up and speak in front of them. And at the end, they usually have a thing where you can give stuff to them, and they love booze. So I would bring a bunch of booze. But now my little thing is I bring carbon monoxide alarms, and they love that. And so now it's parlayed itself into them calling me saying, hey, would you come and speak to our agents at our office? And so it takes a long time. So if you want to go fast, try Google AdWords, try Angie List, try all that stuff. I've tried a lot of things. I've tried a ton of things. The ones that worked for me were going to these meetings. And then I put a comment in there that said, just go on Eventbrite and search real estate. You'll find 100 meetings, but it's better to go to one meeting 100 times than 100 meetings once. If you
Totally
don't
agree.
show up consistently, they'll forget about you. If they don't know you're an appraiser and you're a wallflower, they're going to think you're an agent or a mortgage guy. You have to let them know, hey, I'm an appraiser, and make a joke out of it. I mean, when I go to speak, I'm like, I should have brought my t-shirt with the bullseye on the back so that you guys can just start slinging it at me. And but it takes a long time. We're not going to just turn into non-lending appraisers overnight because there's no lending work. But if you do, make sure you use the right form, the right definition of value, and cover yourself, because this is legal stuff. Lending stuff could get you in trouble. This stuff can get you in some real trouble. But that's what's worked. Things that haven't worked, a lot of that pay for leads, because that's a race to the bottom. They're throwing leads out to a bunch of people with whatever those things are, those different places that call us and say, hey, we can give you, we have 5 appraisals in your area. Do you want to join our thing and pay us $50 per lead? That stuff, it just depends. But I've been at it for a long time. I still don't get enough to, put enough top ramen on the table every month. But I collect cans too on my spare time. So we're getting by down here.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian,
sure.
It's Howard. I want to make one more point.
Yeah, Howard.
You talked about estate appraisals being, reasonably easy, and they are. But if you're going to take on divorce work, even though the vast majority of the cases do settle, don't take it on if you're unwilling to testify. You're only putting your client in a bind.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think divorce work is a different animal. And so absolutely. So, and I do like Mitchell said, I keep it simple. Open Q&A is my go-to when dealing with realtors. Absolutely. And to clarify, I get hired to speak all the time, but one thing that I do offer is that, hey, I'll do a free 20-minute Q&A on Zoom for any real estate office. And I definitely do that. And I do speak at all the MLS meetings for free, once a year at all those meetings. And so I'm finding ways to tailor different products for different people. And so I think we have to do that. If we only have, we're a one-trick pony and here's the only thing that I offer, like I just feel like different people have different needs. Same thing in the appraisal stuff. So, but anyone else, anyone have, questions? Happy to be an open book for anyone. I do hope that people would email me after this. I want to have a good relationship with appraisers. And if you want the PDF, cool. Happy to share that with you. If you like, next week, I'm going to push out an Excel spreadsheet. Great. Actually, if anyone wants to give feedback on it, I can share what it looks like right now. I know Joe's seen it already. Some of it still sucks, but I'm just trying to put something like what would be helpful for agents. That's really the goal. Okay. But anything else?
I do have a question. I do, Ryan. It's Mark. Of course, I
Yeah.
always do. So a lot of this stuff seems to be one-off, especially when you're getting from real estate agents. They're like, oh, I have a client and, someone passed away or getting divorced. They need to work. How did you find your way into getting assignments for multiple appraisals at the same time or from repeat customers? Where does that come from?
So, I mean, there are repeat customers with different real estate agents who refer me business consistently. And so I could look in, my Excel spreadsheet this year for, I have the address of the property, who referred, and what type of work it was. I could very quickly be like, here's the percentage of the work I did that was divorce and who's referred me. And so on that list, though, I definitely see, repeat CPAs. It is not all just, one-off stuff. I see, especially agents who are doing high volume, they're probably going to have more than one referral each year because they need stuff. And sometimes it's just they need a house measure to verify the square footage. But in other cases, we need a pre-listing appraisal, or which I'm often not fast enough for, or it's a date of death. And so I would say that there's actually a lot of repeat because, I have, my network that's big. And so, but I rejoice when it's, the first person, and maybe they saw me speak somewhere. They're like, hey, that guy was pretty cool. Or maybe they subscribe to my blog, or we know each other from Twitter. I mean, there's a lot of ways that comes. So
Did that property management lead? I'm thinking that's a good spot where they're not just managing people that have one property. When grandpa dies, he's got 27 properties.
Well, yeah, and that happens. Yeah, and so sometimes like people have a lot of properties. It's honestly really overwhelming for me when someone orders and they have like 10 appraisals. I like the paycheck. I just, it is so stressful. And so and then I'm always like,
I'm going to interrupt you here.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful that Ryan gets stresses out by too many properties, because he gave me one in Woodland last year for 17 properties that turned into 17 grand. So Ryan, I probably owe you a dinner from that one.
You don't, hey, you know what? Let's just be friends. I don't need anything.
that
Come
was-
over and
that-
play. Come over and play pool. That's what you owe
I
me.
suck at pool, so I'd be
So do
happy
I.
to.
So do
Yeah, that's good.
Appraisers are a great source of referrals, so
For
it doesn't
sure.
hurt.
Yeah, and I'm going to take over again. So Kathy, I know through NAA, and there were a couple of other people from NAA. Jessica DiMaggio volunteers for REAA. Rob Perez, who was from REAA. Anna Rourke helped found our East Bay chapter. A lot of my work comes from knowing appraisers. I got to know Ryan by going to classes, and also by working with him on the local, with the local appraiser association. It's huge to volunteer and connect with other appraisers. They see that they get to know you. They understand your talents. They understand what work you'll do where, and they'll refer it to you.
Yeah.
And I refer work to other appraisers all the time. I get calls, and like Ryan said, I'm a resource for people who need to find an appraisal. The other thing I do is I partner with people smarter than me. So Howard mentors Dennis Desai. Dennis Desai is my SRA advisor and is my first call if I'm stuck. I also have a partnership with a local MAI. I had work last year, that big job that Ryan sent my way. After we agreed to terms, they said, oh, we need an MAI to sign it. And so my MAI partnership paid off, and I was able to take that job because I built these relationships over the years. So
For sure, for sure. And
I think I'm done talking for the rest of this. So
oh no, and you know, that was really good, Joe. But I'm glad that like we have a good relationship. There's not, for me, I don't view other appraisers as the enemy. And I know that like I'm the most visible appraiser in the market. It's true, but I'm not a douchebag, right? I love my colleagues, and you know, if I have success, I want to bring everyone with me, right?
yeah,
Ben asked a question about which forms to use. I think here's a great step. If you want to get into private work, look at the GPAR form and maybe build a template. You know, just kind of fill out your template this year, and so you're ready for more private work and get to know the form, and you know, make sure that it's just ready. I have a form that that it has all my addendums in there and my template, and you know, maybe try to build something like that. So. Um, but let's see, I was going to say something really revolutionary, but then it's gone. Man, too bad. Oh well. So anyone else? Anyone else got anything to say? Form vendors have lots of non-lender forms. That comes down to competency. I really didn't mention that in my class. Obviously, I don't mean to gloss over it, but you know, I'm glad that people caught it in the comments. It's always in the comments where the wisdom comes. Um, Anything else? Are we ready to not beat the dead horse? Should we end this sucker?
But hey, Ryan, it's Howard again.
Yeah,
I want to comment with regard to the forms. People who are predominantly lending based are obviously very form oriented. When you start to get into the non-lending world, don't be married to the forms. There are times that a narrative report is a more appropriate way to go. And there are, you know, don't get, people use the GPAR form, but there's more than one GPAR form, you know, and, you know, become familiar with the standard 2 in USPAP on what reporting actually requires. It doesn't require everything that you're putting in some of these form reports. So there are ways to skinny things down, and there are times based on your intended use and intended user, you have to beef things up more than you're typically used to. So if you're going to do this kind of work, this again comes with the competency. Know who your audience is, and you know, address the report for the purpose in which it's being intended.
yeah. No, that's good, and it's so true. I just sometimes for like tax appeal work, I don't do very much. Honestly, it's not a huge factor in our market. If we really saw prices drop, then it'll become more of a factor, right? Maybe we'll see a little bit more this year, but I have a Word document that I use in sort of a mini narrative for tax appeal work. The way I figure is that the assessor's not doing a GPAR, so I don't have to do one either. And as long as I'm USPAP compliant, and I am, you know. But it was funny because I put together something recently for an appeal that I did for someone, and you know, then the appraiser on the assessor side was like, I've never seen an appraisal report look like this before. I thought that was a compliment. I don't know what he thought, but for me, this property was so funky. It was a duplex in a place where there were literally no other duplexes on the river. Okay. Like, oh my gosh. And so it wasn't going to fit on a form anyway. So I was like, why would I be crazy enough to put it on there? And so I laid out my logic. The assessor ended up, they agreed with me, whether I was right or wrong, who knows, but I'm glad that that happened. And my client had results, and I felt like it was credible. But anyway, anything else, folks? Or do we need to close this up? Also, and Donna says, also need to remember with non-lending work, you must write your report so the intended user can comprehend it. Absolutely. General public will not always comprehend language used in lending reports. So true, so true. Just
yeah.
be
And
clear.
once again, I would say, you know, if you're new to this, Anna Rourke has this huge resource on how to do this work.
Yeah,
You know, pay her subscription fee, and then go through all of her archives, because she's been writing about this for 20 years.
Definitely. There's so many resources out there. There's so many good appraisers. You know, I know the forums can be really toxic sometimes. We all have to choose how we show up. But there's some really good people out there putting out good information. So hey, let's not beat the dead horse. I've got crazy deadlines, and so I've got to meet those. But everyone, feel free to email me if you want. I got that PDF for you. Thanks for being here. It was a great conversation. Super helpful. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate you.
I'm gonna go ahead
thank-
and stop the recording now.
Yeah, and thank you.
Okay.